Okay, we're going to factor our trinomials today, and we're going to do the full process. And to help you remember the steps, I like to say my father drives a silver Mustang. Now, of course, this does not account for pulling out the greatest common factor first. So always check for that first, and then you can proceed. So the steps are, the M stands for multiply. We're multiplying the first term by the last term. Okay, so that is here. 3 does not go into 19 or 21, so there's no greatest common factor here. So first term times the last term. And I am going to draw my magic X. Make sure it's big enough that you can write in it. So first term times last term. 3 times 20 is 60x squared. And then I factor, which means I fill in the rest of the x, which is what we practiced the other day. So this part gets dropped down to the middle, negative 19x. And so what I'm looking for are factors of 60 that add to negative 19. There are a lot of factors of 60. 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15. And I'm going to stop right there because 4 and 15 is 19, but negative 4 and negative 15 would give me negative 19. So that's what's going to go here. Negative 4x, negative 15x. So the F stands for factor. Finding those two factors is factoring. Then the rest is just a process. Divide by ax squared, which means divide by the first term. So my first term was 3x squared. So I'm going to take each of my factors and divide by 3x squared. And the next part says simplify the fraction. Remember our exponent rules? X over x squared is like saying x over x times x, and we have them cancel out. Or we say 1 minus 2 is negative 1, so it's x to the negative 1, which stays on the bottom. Okay, basically when you're simplifying, remember that there's always going to be one x on the bottom. So if I simplify this, negative 4 over 3 stays as negative 4 over 3, but the x on top goes away and I'm left with one x on the bottom. Over here, if I simplify, negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5, but what's left on the bottom is an x. And then that was simplifying, so now we move to create two binomials. We move the bottom to the front. So I take this bottom and I move it to the front. And then we write out our answer. So my answer here is 3x minus 4, right? Bottom to the front. And here I have x minus 5. Now, I can check this by multiplying this back out. And I would get 3x squared minus 15x minus 4x plus 20, which does equal 3x squared minus 19x plus 20. Or I could use my calculator. I could type this in on a graph page, type this in on a graph page, and see if they overlap. But this is factoring, taking our trinomial and going backwards to the two sets of parentheses. Example 2. I have a greatest common factor here. I need to pull out a 5. So divide, I get 2x squared. Divide again, I get positive 5x. And divide again, I get negative 3. So now, when I make my magic x, I am using my new first term times last term, which means I have negative 6x squared. and then the 5x goes to the bottom. So here I'm finding factors of negative 6 that add to 5. And if you're not careful to write them out, you might get confused. But I want a positive number and a negative number. So 1 and negative 6 gives me positive 5, but negative 1 and positive 6, oops, sorry, that gives me negative 5. And this one would give me positive 5. So I have negative 1x, positive 6x. That multiplies and gives me negative 6. It adds and gives me positive 5. So now I follow the steps. I divide by the first term, 2x squared. I simplify the fraction, so it's negative 1 over 2x. 6 divided by 2 is 3, keep an x on the bottom. And then I move the first term to the front. So I have 2x minus 1 and x plus 3. Now, what happened to the 5 that I pulled out? Right? This part here. It actually goes out in front as part of your problem. I got 2 more I'm going to do with you. Example 3. There's no greatest common factor, so we're just going to draw our magic X. Take the first term times the last term, which gives me 36x squared. Move the middle to the bottom, so 12x. And I'm looking for factors of 36 that add to 12. So factors of 36, 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. 6 and 6 will add to 12. Okay, which means I need to put 6x and 6x. Now we're dividing by the first term, which is 9x squared. So you're dividing your factors. Then we simplify. 6 divided by 9 is, they both divide by 3, so it's 2 over 3x. This is the same, so 2 over 3x. And then we move the bottom to the front. So it's 3x. The 2 is positive, so plus 2. 3x plus 2. This is exactly the same, so you could see it as 3x plus 2 squared. All right, in example 4, draw your magic X. No greatest common factor, so first term times last term, which is all there is. So I have negative 9x squared. My middle term is 0. So what are my factors of negative 9 that add to 0? Well, factors of negative 9 are 1 and negative 9, negative 1 and 9, or 3 and negative 3, which adds to 0. So I want to write 3x, negative 3x. And now we're going to divide by the first term, which is 9x squared. And I simplify my fraction to 3 and 9. If I can divide both of them by 3, I get 1 over 3x. Here I get negative 1 over 3x. And I move the bottom to the front. So I have 3x plus 1 and 3x minus 1. All right, you try 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just a hint that on numbers 3 and 4, you are going to have to pull out a greatest common factor.